Time is not a line. It is a tide, rising, falling, sweeping away kingdoms, cities, and songs. Beneath our feet lie the forgotten dreams of civilizations so beautiful, they shimmered like mirages, until they vanished. This is not just history, this is memory. A memory written in stone, in gold, in whispers carried by the wind. These are the lost worlds, silent, sacred, and staggering in their brilliance. What connects us to these vanished peoples? Why do their achievements still move us to wonder? Perhaps because in their triumphs and failures we see reflections of our own. Perhaps because beauty, once created, never truly dies. It only changes form, becomes memory, becomes myth. From mountaintops to desert sands, from jungle temples to sunken harbors, the remnants of human ingenuity lie scattered across our planet. Each ruin a testament to ambition, each artifact a letter from ancestors we never knew we had. Some were destroyed by nature's fury, earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions that rewrote landscapes overnight. Others succumbed more slowly to changing climates, to resources exhausted, to the slow entropy that eventually claims all things. Many were conquered, absorbed, their achievements claimed by others or deliberately erased by those who feared or misunderstood them. Yet they endure in fragments, in whispers, in the genetic memory of our species that recognizes something profound when standing before ancient works, something that transcends time and speaks directly to the human soul. Join us now as we listen closely to the whispers of time, as we walk through valleys of forgotten knowledge and climb mountains of lost wisdom, as we rediscover not just what was lost, but what remains eternal. The Nabateans, the poets of the desert. They carved poetry into stone. In the barren heart of the desert, the Nabateans created Petra, a city of arches, altars, and awe. Founded more than 2,000 years ago, Petra was not just a city. It was a crossroads of empires, a silent witness to the conversations of Rome, Persia, and Arabia. The Nabateans emerged from nomadic roots, Aramaic-speaking peoples who discovered something more valuable than gold in the harsh landscapes between the Dead Sea and the Red Sea. They found opportunity. Water, scarce and sacred, was channeled through an engineering marvel. Secret aqueducts and underground cisterns that nourished gardens in the sand. Their mastery of hydraulics transformed barren wadis into lush oases, defying the desert's thirst with ingenuity and persistence. They carved channels into cliff faces, built dams across seasonal streams, and created ceramic pipes that carried precious moisture for miles. During flash floods that would normally bring destruction, their systems captured every drop, storing abundance for the inevitable drought. The Saiku, that narrow, winding canyon entrance to their capital, was both natural defense and ingenious water management system. Along its towering walls, they carved channels that directed rainwater into cisterns that could sustain the city for years. Archaeologists have discovered more than 200 cisterns in and around Petra, some capable of holding over 30,000 gallons of water. The Nabateans were not conquerors, they were connectors. Their caravans traversed the most treacherous routes, linking east and west through a network of trade that brought spices, silk, and ideas through the unyielding desert. Their merchants spoke a dozen languages, their coins reached distant shores, and their reputation for fairness preceded them across continents. From Yemen's frankincense to China's silk, from India's spices to Egypt's papyrus, all passed through Nabatean hands. Their capital at Petra became wealthy beyond imagination. At its height in the 1st century BCE, perhaps 20,000 people lived among its rose-colored cliffs. The city featured theaters, bathhouses, markets, and homes carved directly into the living rock. The Nabateans developed their own architectural style, a unique fusion of Hellenistic elegance and Arab practicality, with Egyptian and Mesopotamian influences subtly woven throughout. They spoke Aramaic, traded silk and incense. They built temples not just for gods, but for eternity. The treasury, Al-Khazne, stands as testament to their devotion, its columns and figures whispering of devotion to Isis, to Tyche, to deities whose names have been lost to time. Every surface tells a story: eagles representing celestial powers, Amazons symbolizing feminine strength, mythical creatures guarding secrets now forgotten. The monastery, perched high above the city and reached only by climbing 800 steps, suggests not just religious devotion, but a civilization willing to invest tremendous effort in connecting with something beyond the material. Within its simple interior, spiritual ceremonies once echoed, perhaps honoring Dushara, their principal male deity associated with mountains, and Al-Uzza, the goddess of water and fertility. Their religion blended Arabian traditions with influences from every land they touched. They did not force their beliefs on others, but incorporated foreign deities into their pantheon with characteristic openness. They performed rituals on high places, made offerings at standing stones called betels, and understood the divine as present in natural features like mountains and springs. In their quieter moments, they wrote poetry on papyrus now turned to dust. They sang songs whose melodies have been carried away by desert winds. They celebrated life with wine pressed from grapes grown in impossible gardens. Archaeological evidence reveals fine pottery imported from across the Mediterranean, delicate glassware, jewelry fashioned from gold and silver and precious stones, all signs of a society that valued beauty alongside practicality. Their political system combined monarchy with elements of consultation among tribal elders. Their kings, bearing names like Aretas and Obodas, maintained independence through strategic alliances and shrewd diplomacy. For centuries, they balanced between greater powers, managing to retain autonomy while neighbors fell to imperial conquest. Their economy was diversified beyond trade alone. They manufactured fine ceramics, created distinctive coins, and developed unique perfumes and medicines from desert plants, whose properties they understood intimately. They controlled the production of bitumen from the Dead Sea, a substance used in Egyptian mummification and Roman shipbuilding alike. And then, they vanished. Folded back into the dunes, their language swallowed by silence, their roads lost beneath centuries of dust. Perhaps it was changing trade routes. Perhaps the rise of maritime commerce diverted the flow of goods that had been their lifeblood. Perhaps the slow, inexorable march of Roman ambition finally overcame their diplomatic skill. In 106 CE, the Roman Emperor Trajan annexed the Nabatean kingdom, incorporating it into the province of Arabia Petraea. The Romans brought roads and administrative efficiency, but something vital was lost. Gradually, the population shifted eastward to Bosra. Christianity arrived, transforming temples into churches. Earthquakes shook the foundations. The Islamic conquest brought new traditions. By the time the Crusaders built a small fort in Petra in the 12th century, the city that had once housed thousands was home to only a handful of families. For centuries, Petra slept, known only to local Bedouin and a few adventurous travelers. Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered it for Western eyes in 1812, disguised as a Muslim pilgrim. Since then, it has captured the imagination of millions, appearing in films and novels, on postcards and travel posters, a symbol of lost grandeur and mysterious beauty. But Petra remains, a rose-red dream cradled by time. At sunset, when the light strikes the sandstone just so, you can almost hear the echo of Nabatean voices, merchants haggling, priests chanting, children laughing, all carved forever into the living rock. In the silence between those echoes lies a profound truth, that even the most brilliant civilizations are, in the end, as temporary as footprints in the desert sand. Yet what they create, what they teach us about human possibility, never truly disappears. If, the bronze soul of Africa. In the heart of West Africa, long before the arrival of Europeans, the kingdom of Ife thrived. Here, where the forests of Nigeria meet the savannah, a civilization emerged that would challenge how the world understood African history. While Europe was still emerging from the Middle Ages, Ife was creating art that would later astonish the world with its sophistication and humanity. Here, artists shaped the human soul into bronze. Their work was so precise, so painfully beautiful, that when Western explorers found it, they refused to believe Africans had made it. They invented tales of lost Greek colonies, of Atlantean refugees, anything but acknowledging the truth, that African hands had created these masterpieces. German explorer Leo Frobenius, upon seeing Ife sculptures in 1910, immediately attributed them to the lost Greek colony of Atlantis, unable to reconcile their technical perfection with his preconceptions about African capabilities, but they had. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, Ife was a center of spirituality, philosophy, and unmatched artistry. Their naturalistic bronze and terracotta heads capture every nuance of expression, every line of age, every bead of ceremonial scarification, with a sensitivity that speaks across centuries. These were not stylized approximations, but precise portraits, individuals immortalized in metal and clay, their dignity and presence preserved for posterity. The casting technique itself reveals extraordinary technological accomplishment. Using the lost wax method, Sire Perdue, Ife metalworkers created hollow sculptures of remarkable thinness, sometimes just a few millimeters thick. This required control of temperature, timing, and material composition that would challenge even modern foundries. Each piece represented not just artistic vision, but engineering excellence. The city of Ife-Ile was laid out in perfect cosmological harmony. At its center stood the Afin, the palace of the Uni, divine king and living ancestor. Around it, shrines and temples formed concentric circles, a physical manifestation of Yoruba cosmic order. Sacred groves surrounded the city, where initiates communed with orishas, the divine forces that shaped their understanding of existence. Archaeological excavations have revealed remnants of walls and moats that once encircled the city, some stretching over 10 miles in circumference. These were not primarily defensive structures, but symbolic boundaries between the profane and sacred worlds, between the realm of humans and the domain of spirits. The city itself was divided into quarters, each associated with specific crafts, deities, and lineages. They practiced glass-making before many European societies, crafting delicate beads in furnaces hot enough to transform sand into translucent beauty. The famous Olokun blue glass beads, colored with cobalt, became treasured items traded across West Africa. Their pottery tells stories of rituals, of harvests, of royal succession, narratives in clay that outlived their creators. Their agricultural knowledge transformed the forest landscape. They cultivated yams, palm oil, and kola nuts in systems that maintained soil fertility across generations. They understood the medicinal properties of hundreds of plants, developing pharmacological knowledge that Europeans would later exploit without acknowledgement. Their metallurgists worked not just in bronze but in iron, creating tools that increased agricultural productivity and weapons that established regional dominance. Ife was not isolated but connected to vast trade networks. Copper for their bronzes came from mines hundreds of miles away in what is now Niger. Trade routes linked them to the great empires of the Sahel, Mali and Songhai, and through them to North Africa and the Mediterranean world. Glass beads from Venice and cowrie shells from the Indian Ocean found their way into Ife markets, evidence of indirect connections to global commerce. Their sculptures whispered of kings and ancestors, of gods and guardians, realism, symmetry, humanity, all in metal. The famous Ife heads, with their serene expressions and regal bearing, stand as silent witnesses to a sophisticated court culture that valued both artistic excellence and spiritual depth. Some wear elaborate headdresses indicating royal status. Others bear ritual scarification marks that identified lineage, achievement, and spiritual protection. Each was part of a complex visual language that communicated social position and cosmic alignment. The Ife understanding of Ori, the Yoruba concept of destiny and inner spiritual head, shaped their portraiture. The slightly enlarged heads of many sculptures reflect the importance placed on individual destiny and divine connection. The calm, meditative expressions capture a philosophical outlook that valued inner balance and spiritual awareness. Their cosmology was complex and sophisticated. They recognized a supreme creator deity, Olodumare, who worked through hundreds of orishas, divine forces associated with natural phenomena, human activities, and moral principles. Rituals maintained balance between visible and invisible worlds. Divination systems like Ifa provided frameworks for understanding fate and making decisions. These were not simply religious practices, but complete philosophical systems addressing fundamental questions of existence, ethics, and social harmony. Colonial hands scattered their legacy. Museums in London, Berlin, and New York display treasures torn from their context. The British punitive expedition of 1897 against neighboring Benin resulted in the looting of thousands of bronzes, including some from Ife, yet the art remains unbroken. And in every curve of bronze, the soul of Ife still breathes, speaking to us of a time when African cities shone with intellectual and creative brilliance that rivaled any civilization on Earth. The legacy of Ife did not disappear but transformed. When Ife political power declined in the 15th century, its artistic and spiritual traditions found new expression in the Benin Kingdom, where bronze casting reached even greater technical heights. The Yoruba cultural continuum, of which Ife represents a golden moment, never truly broke, but evolved, survived colonialism, and thrives today among millions of people in Nigeria, Benin, and throughout the African diaspora. Today, in modern Ile Ife, traditional priests still pour libations on ancient shrines. The Uni still reigns, though now as a constitutional monarch rather than a divine king. University scholars work alongside traditional knowledge keepers to reconstruct the full complexity of Ife history and philosophy. And somewhere in the earth below the city, countless treasures wait to be rediscovered, each a page from a book the world is only now learning to read. When we contemplate Ife bronze heads now, we are not just seeing beautiful objects. We are witnessing a moment when human creativity transcended all limitations of material, of technique, of social constraint. We are seeing proof that genius emerges wherever conditions allow, that artistry is the birthright of all peoples. Most importantly, we are seeing ourselves reflected back from centuries past. Our own humanity recognized and celebrated by hands long turned to dust. The Muisca, the golden truth of El Dorado, a city of gold, a fever dream for conquistadors who tore through jungles and mountains, driven by greed disguised as glory. For centuries, European explorers died searching for it, never understanding they were chasing not a place, but a ceremony. The myth of El Dorado twisted and grew with each telling, transforming from a golden man to a golden city to an entire golden kingdom, each incarnation more impossible, more tantalizing than the last. But the truth was stranger and wiser. The Muisca people lived among the mountains and lakes of Colombia. In the high Andean plateaus, where the air is thin and stars seem close enough to touch, they built a civilization that understood gold, not as wealth, but as sunlight made solid. Their homeland, the Altiplano Cundiboyacense, rises more than 8,000 feet above sea level, creating a landscape of fertile valleys, nestled between towering peaks and dotted with sacred lakes formed in ancient craters. They honored their gods not with greed, but with gifts. Each new leader, the Zipa or Zak, would cover his body in gold dust and bathe in sacred waters, not to flaunt wealth, but to offer it. The gold would shimmer on his skin, transforming him into a living embodiment of solar divinity before washing away into the depths of Lake Guatavita, a gift returned to the earth. This ceremony, witnessed by Spanish chronicler Juan Rodriguez Fraile in the 1580s, became the seed of the El Dorado legend that would consume European imaginations. The cosmology behind this ritual was profound. The act symbolized the union of masculine solar energy, gold, with feminine water energy, creating fertility and balance. The golden leader standing upon a raft made of reeds represented the mediator between cosmic forces, his sacrifice ensuring the continuation of life cycles. What Europeans saw as wasteful extravagance was, to the Muisca, essential spiritual maintenance of universal order. Gold was not money, it was memory, a symbol of light, not luxury. The Muisca language, Chibcha, did not even have a word that directly translated to gold as Europeans understood it. Instead, they used Nia, which connected to concepts of solar brightness, divine energy, and sacred power. They did not mine gold to hoard it, but to transform it into communication with the divine. The Muisca crafted tunjos, small figurines that represented prayers, hopes, and offerings. These delicate works depicted humans, animals, and scenes from daily life, each one a conversation with the divine. Some show shamans in transformation states, their bodies half human, half animal. Others depict community activities like planting or harvesting. Many feature the distinctive Muisca aesthetic, minimalist forms with exaggerated features emphasizing spiritual essence over physical accuracy. Metallurgical analysis of Muisca goldwork reveals sophisticated techniques, depletion gilding to create surfaces of pure gold over copper-gold alloys, lost wax casting of intricate forms, soldering of complex compositional elements. These were not primitive trinkets, but expressions of advanced technological knowledge applied toward spiritual ends. Most importantly, Muisca metalworkers understood that their technical skills were in service to something greater, the maintenance of cosmic harmony. Their society was structured around mutual obligation and cosmic balance. The Muisca calendar. Stone dough. Whispers of time. The most beautiful lost civilization's time is not a line. It is a tide, rising, falling, sweeping away kingdoms, cities, and songs. Beneath our feet lie the forgotten dreams of civilizations so beautiful they shimmered like mirages, until they vanished. This is not just history, this is memory. A memory written in stone, in gold, in whispers carried by the wind. These are the lost worlds, silent, sacred, and staggering in their brilliance. What connects us to these vanished peoples? Why do their achievements still move us to wonder? Perhaps because in their triumphs and failures, we see reflections of our own. Perhaps because beauty, once created, never truly dies. It only changes form, becomes memory, becomes myth. From mountaintops to desert sands, from jungle temples to sunken harbors, the remnants of human ingenuity lie scattered across our planet. Each ruin, a testament to ambition. Each artifact a letter from ancestors we never knew we had. Some were destroyed by nature's fury, earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions that rewrote landscapes overnight. Others succumbed more slowly to changing climates, to resources exhausted, to the slow entropy that eventually claims all things. Many were conquered, absorbed, their achievements claimed by others, or deliberately erased by those who feared or misunderstood them. Yet they endure in fragments, in whispers, in the genetic memory of our species that recognizes something profound when standing before ancient works, something that transcends time and speaks directly to the human soul. Join us now, as we listen closely to the whispers of time, as we walk through valleys of forgotten knowledge and climb mountains of lost wisdom, as we rediscover not just what was lost, but what remains eternal. The Sogdians, the invisible bridge. They had no empire, no armies, and yet the Sogdians connected empires. In the harsh landscapes of Central Asia, between mountain ranges that pierce the sky and deserts that devour the unwary, these master merchants created not a kingdom, but a network. Their civilization flourished between the 5th and 8th centuries CE in what is now Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, lands where summer burns and winter freezes, where survival itself requires ingenuity and adaptability. From Samarkand to Xi'an, their language, Sogdian, was the code of commerce. Letters written in Sogdian script have been found from Turkey to China, their words preserving business deals, family concerns, and spiritual questions from over a millennium ago. The famous ancient letters, discovered in a watchtower along the Great Wall of China, reveal intimate details of merchant life. A wife, abandoned in Dunhuang, writing to her mother about her husband's neglect. Traders discussing prices of silver and wool. Reports of political upheavals affecting caravan routes. They were merchants, messengers, diplomats. The Silk Road was their lifeblood. Though we often imagine this ancient trade route as a single path, it was in fact a complex network of trails and market towns. And at crucial nodes along this network stood Sogdian cities. Samarkand, ancient Afrasiab, Bukhara, Panji Kent. These were not just commercial centers but cultural crossroads where ideas merged and transformed. The Sogdians mastered the art of survival in lands controlled by others. They established diaspora communities in foreign capitals, from Constantinople to Chang'an, modern Xi'an. Chinese sources record their presence in dozens of Chinese cities, where they maintained their language and customs while adapting to local conditions. The term Sogdian lanes in Chinese texts describes entire neighborhoods where Central Asian merchants lived, worshipped, and traded. In Sogdian cities like Panjikent and Afrasiab, walls were painted with scenes of life so vibrant you can almost hear the music playing at the feasts they depict. Nobles recline on cushions, while musicians play harps and drums. Heroes from Persian epics battle mythical beasts. Religious scenes show deities from multiple traditions coexisting in sacred harmony. These frescoes, preserved by the same dry climate that made agriculture so challenging, offer windows into a cosmopolitan society that valued pleasure, story, and cultural exchange. Multicultural to their core, they absorbed influences from every civilization they touched. Their art shows Persian kings, Indian deities, Chinese philosophers, all rendered with understanding and respect. In their architecture, you can trace elements from Byzantine domes, Chinese courtyard layouts, and Persian decorative motifs, all synthesized into uniquely Sogdian forms. Their clothing combined silk from China, cotton from India, and wool from their own flocks, often in the same garment. They worshipped Zoroaster, Buddha, and local spirits. Their murals burst with color, feasts, caravans, celestial beings. In their temples, fire altars burned alongside Buddhist stupas. Archaeological excavations have revealed religious complexes where multiple faiths practiced side by side. The famous Dewashtich Palace in Panjikent contained rooms dedicated to different religious traditions, pragmatic pluralism that reflected their commercial connections. In their homes, they ate from Chinese porcelain while wearing garments of Byzantine silk. Their tables featured foods from every corner of the known world: pistachios from Persia, tea from China, pepper from India, fruits from their own carefully irrigated valleys. Their tolerance was not just virtue, it was business sense. In a world fractured by imperial rivalries and religious conflicts, the Sogdians found profit in being everyone's friend and no one's enemy. The Sogdians were masters of paper making, learning the art from China and passing it westward. Before they carried this technology to Samarkand around 700 CE, the Western world relied on expensive parchment and fragile papyrus. The paper revolution they helped spread would eventually transform information technology worldwide, making books more affordable and literacy more common. Without this transfer of knowledge, the later intellectual flourishing of the Islamic Golden Age might have been severely constrained. Their translators rendered Sanskrit texts into Chinese, Persian epics into Turkic languages. Buddhist sutras traveled from India to China through Sogdian intermediaries who not only translated words but adapted concepts to make them comprehensible across cultural boundaries. Sogdian monks like Kang Senghui, became influential teachers of Buddhism in China, synthesizing Central Asian, Indian, and Chinese philosophical traditions. Knowledge flowed through their hands like the silk and spices in their caravans. Medical techniques, astronomical observations, mathematical concepts, and technological innovations all traveled the Silk Road network they maintained. The Sogdians didn't simply transport goods, they transmitted civilization itself, serving as crucial nodes in the intellectual ecosystem of Eurasia. Their musical traditions blended Persian rhythms with Chinese melodies and Central Asian instruments. The Barbat, ancestor of the European lute, traveled westward through Sogdian hands. Murals show musicians playing harps, drums, flutes, and stringed instruments in ensembles that suggest sophisticated musical theory and practice. Chinese court records mention Sogdian dancers and musicians who introduced new styles that became wildly popular in the Tang dynasty. They built cities of music and spice. Their two-story homes housed extended families of traders and craftspeople. Excavations at Panjikent reveal urban planning that balanced density with privacy, with homes featuring reception rooms for business, private family quarters, and workshops for craft production. Their bazaars echoed with dozens of languages. Their gardens, irrigated by ingenious channels, grew fruits from distant lands, pomegranates, apricots, peaches, and grapes that sweetened life in a harsh environment. Their craftsmanship extended beyond trade goods. Sogdian silversmiths created bowls and plates depicting scenes from Persian epics and local legends. Their ceramics combined Chinese glazing techniques with Persian forms and Central Asian decorative motifs. Their textiles, mostly lost to time but depicted in paintings, showed intricate patterns that influenced design traditions from China to the Mediterranean. And then they disappeared, absorbed, assimilated, erased. The Arab conquests brought new faiths, new languages. The Battle of Talas in 751 CE marked a turning point, as Arab forces defeated a Chinese army and established Muslim dominance in Central Asia. Gradually, Sogdian cities adopted Islam, and the Sogdian language gave way to Persian and later Turkic tongues. The rise of sea routes diminished their strategic importance. As maritime technology improved in the 8th and 9th centuries, the dangerous overland routes that had given Sogdians their advantage became less economical. Trade patterns shifted, bypassing the cities that had once controlled crucial mountain passes and desert ways. The Mongol invasions scattered their communities. When Genghis Khan's armies swept through Central Asia in the early 13th century, they destroyed irrigation systems and urban centers that had never fully recovered from earlier Arab conquests. Samarkand and Bukhara would rise again, but as Persian-speaking Islamic cities, their Sogdian identity erased beneath new cultural layers. Like salt in water, they dissolved into the empires they once connected. Their genes live on in populations across Asia. Their words survive in linguistic borrowings. Their technological and artistic innovations became so thoroughly integrated into other cultures that their Sogdian origins were forgotten. But every time you wear silk or drink tea, you honor them. Every time an idea travels from east to west or west to east, it follows routes they established. The invisible bridge, the Sogdians, still stands, spanning not just continents, but centuries. In our connected world of global commerce and cultural exchange, we are all, in some small way, inheritors of their legacy. Merchants at the crossroads, translators of worlds. Cahokia, the silent city of the Mississippi before New York. Before London, there was Cahokia. In what is now the American Midwest, along the fertile floodplains where the Mississippi and Missouri rivers embrace, a metropolis emerged that defies our narratives about pre-Columbian North America. Along the Mississippi River, a city once flourished, larger than medieval Paris, built not with stone, but with earth, mounds that scraped the sky, roads aligned with the stars. At its heart stood Monk's Mound, a four-terraced pyramid rising over 100 feet, covering 14 acres at its base. It took 14 million baskets of soil to create, each carried on human backs. Tens of thousands lived here, farmers, astronomers, priests. They planted vast fields of maize, beans, and squash. They traded for copper from the Great Lakes, shells from the Gulf of Mexico, mica from the Appalachians. Their influence spread through riverine highways that connected half a continent. They built a wood henge to track the sun, massive cedar posts arranged in a circle, marking solstices and equinoxes with astronomical precision. As the sun rose over specific posts, priests could determine planting times, festival dates, the rhythm of their ceremonial calendar. Their craftspeople created delicate figurines from clay and stone. The famous Burger figurine shows a woman farming while supernatural beings emerge from plants, a testament to their cosmological understanding of agriculture. They played Chunky, a game where stone discs were rolled across courts while players threw spears to predict the landing spot. Games that were both sport and sacred ritual. They practiced diplomacy, not dominion. Archaeologists have found evidence of diplomatic quarters where visitors from distant societies were hosted. Feasting was central to their political life. Massive communal meals where food became power, alliance, and social glue. And then, like a breath, they were gone. Perhaps drought, perhaps migration, perhaps political upheaval or environmental change. By 1350 CE, Cahokia stood empty, its plazas silent, save for the rustle of prairie grass reclaiming the earth. The silence is complete. No written records name their leaders. No texts explain their beliefs. The peoples who descended from them, like the Osage and other Degihan Siouan speakers, carry fragments of memory in their oral traditions. But Cahokia itself became a mystery, even to those who built their villages atop its ruins centuries later. But the mounds still rise, and if you stand atop them at dawn, you might still hear the heartbeat of Cahokia. You might glimpse what it meant to build a city not as a monument to kings, but as a mirror of the cosmos. When European settlers first saw these mounds, they couldn't believe Native Americans had built them. Some even attributed them to a lost tribe of Israel or refugees from Atlantis. Anything but acknowledging the architectural and social achievement of indigenous Americans. Today, as highways and suburbs encroach on what remains of this ancient metropolis, Cahokia asks us to reconsider not just American history, but the very nature of what we call civilization. The Minoans, masters of the labyrinth. Before Homer sang of heroes, before Athens raised its marble temples, there existed a civilization so refined, so joyous in its expression, that even the Greeks who came after viewed it with wonder. On the island of Crete, the Minoans created perhaps the first true European civilization, one that still challenges our understanding of what ancient societies could achieve. Their palaces were labyrinths of wonder, Knossos, Phaistos, Malia, multi-storied complexes with light wells, running water, and elaborate drainage systems at a time when most of Europe lived in simple huts. These were not fortresses, but centers of administration, ritual, and artistry. Unlike the defensive citadels of the mainland, Minoan palaces had no walls. The sea was their protection, their fleet, their pride. They worshipped primarily goddesses, not gods. Figurines of women with upraised arms, with snakes coiling around their bodies, with doves perched on their heads. These speak of a spiritual system where feminine divinity held sway. Their ceremonies included ecstatic dance, bull leaping, and offerings of honey and wine. Their art celebrates life, not war. On palace walls, dolphins leap through blue waters. Young men and women, their skin tones differentiated by the artistic convention of red for men, white for women, perform dangerous acrobatic feats with bulls. Monkeys chatter among exotic plants. There are almost no scenes of battle, of conquest, of the military glorification so common in other ancient societies. The Minoan script, Linear A, remains undeciphered, a tantalizing whisper we cannot yet understand. Their language is unknown, their voices silent. We see their world only through images and objects, through the architecture that survived earthquakes and invasions. They were master craftspeople. Their pottery, marine style and floral style, captures the dynamism of octopuses swirling across vessel surfaces, of lilies unfurling in painted bloom. Their goldwork shows bees gathering honey. Their seal stones depict scenes of religious ecstasy in miniature. Their textiles, now lost but depicted in frescoes, were renowned throughout the ancient Mediterranean. And then, around 1450 BCE, Minoan civilization collapsed. Perhaps it was the catastrophic eruption of Thera, modern Santorini. Perhaps it was invasion by Mycenaean Greeks from the mainland. Perhaps it was climate change or internal upheaval. The palaces burned. Linear A gave way to Linear B, the earliest form of Greek. The goddess figurines disappeared from shrines, yet something of their spirit endured. The myth of Theseus and the Minotaur in the labyrinth preserves a distorted memory of bull-leaping rituals. The Greek god Dionysus perhaps had Minoan origins. And in museums across Crete, the familiarity of Minoan faces, painted nearly 4,000 years ago, still startles visitors with their modernity, their humanity, their joy in a world they embraced with open arms. The Khmer, architects of the divine. In the dense jungles of Cambodia, stone towers rise like mountain peaks touching heaven. This is Angkor, the sacred capital of the Khmer Empire, the largest pre-industrial urban complex on Earth. Here, between the 9th and 15th centuries, a civilization created architectural marvels that would remain unrivaled for centuries. At its heart stands Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument ever built. Its 5 towers symbolize the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the cosmic mountain at the center of Hindu cosmology. Its moat represents the oceans surrounding the world. It is both temple and cosmos, prayer and geography made stone. The Khmer kings were Devarajas, god-kings who embodied divine power. Each built temple mountains as physical connections between earth and heaven, between the temporal and eternal. Their hydraulic engineering transformed the landscape into a vast sacred geography where water, captured in massive barrages, reservoirs, symbolized both spiritual purity and agricultural prosperity. The face towers of the Bayon stare out with enigmatic smiles, dozens of massive stone faces, perhaps depicting King Jayavarman VII as Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion. Here, Buddhism temporarily displaced Hinduism as the state religion, creating a tension between faiths that would play out over centuries in stone and ritual. The Khmer, built not just with vision, but with precision. Their temples align with solstices and equinoxes. Their bas-reliefs tell stories of cosmic churning, of historic battles, of everyday life, farmers planting rice, women giving birth, musicians playing ancient instruments. Their dancing apsaras, celestial dancers frozen in stone, embody grace that transcends time. Beyond the temples, Angkor was a living city. Recent LiDAR surveys reveal the true extent of this urban complex. Hundreds of square kilometers of ordered space, with houses on stilts to avoid seasonal flooding, with rice fields integrated into the urban landscape. Their engineers created an hydraulic system of canals, reservoirs, and distribution networks that transformed monsoon rains into year-round agricultural productivity. Their artists worked in bronze, in wood, in precious stones, creating mobile art now mostly lost to time and looting, but hinted at in Chinese diplomatic accounts that speak of golden towers and jeweled Buddhas. And then decline came. Perhaps it was climate change. Tree ring data suggests severe droughts in the 14th and 15th centuries. Perhaps it was the shift in regional power toward maritime trade, leaving the inland Khmer at a disadvantage. Perhaps it was the enormous burden of maintaining the hydraulic infrastructure that had made their civilization possible. The capital moved south toward Phnom Penh. The temples remained as religious sites, never completely abandoned but slowly embraced by strangling fig trees and creeping vines. When French explorers discovered Angkor in the 19th century, they found not an abandoned ruin, but a living religious site, tended by Buddhist monks who had long ago made peace with the Hindu deities carved on the walls. Today, as dawn breaks over Angkor Wat, tourists gather to witness the sunlight illuminating ancient stones. Among them walk Cambodian pilgrims, offering incense to ancestors who built with such ambition that their work still leaves us breathless. The Khmer Empire may have faded, but its sacred geography still shapes the spirit of Cambodia, a nation that proudly places Angkor at the center of its flag and its identity. What makes a civilization? Is it its walls, its wars, its wonders? Or is it the way it treats beauty, the way it honors time, the stories it leaves behind, not written in ink, but etched in memory? These worlds are gone, but their whispers remain, in the stone, in the silence, in us. The Nabatean merchants who carried frankincense across burning sands, the Ife artists who captured human dignity in bronze, the Sogdian translators who passed philosophy from hand to hand like precious silk, the Muisca priests who understood gold as light, not wealth, the Cahokian architects who built cosmic mountains from river mud, the Minoan dancers who leapt over bulls with joy rather than combat in their hearts, the Khmer engineers who married water and stone in sacred geometry. They speak to us still, not in words we can easily translate, but in the universal language of human creativity, of problem solving, of finding meaning in a world that often defies explanation. We are not so different from them. We too build, we too create, we too try to touch something eternal with tools that are painfully temporal. And perhaps one day, centuries from now, someone will look upon our cities, our art, our technologies with the same wonder with which we approach these lost worlds. They will ask the same questions. Who were they? What did they believe? Why did they disappear? Our answers lie waiting in these ancient stones, not because they contain secrets to our survival, though they might, but because they remind us that civilization is not a destination but a journey. Not a trophy to be won, but a garden to be tended. Not a monument to permanence, but a humble acknowledgement of transience. To listen to the whispers of these lost worlds is not to indulge in nostalgia. It is to join a conversation spanning millennia, a conversation about what it means to be human, to create, to believe, to persevere. The tide of time continues its eternal rhythm, rising, falling. But as long as we remember, as long as we listen, these most beautiful of lost civilizations are never truly gone. To forget is easy. To listen takes courage.